Today's lesson is going to be how to make a beanie. You can adjust this to fit a baby up to an adult size. For this project we are going to need some yarn of your choice. I'm going to choose white for the main part of the beanie and the ears, and pink for the inside of the ears. A pair of scissors, a crochet hook, a sewing needle to sew in your ends, and a stitch marker. This can be a piece of wool about 2 inches long, or you can use any stitch marker that you like. It doesn't matter on the thickness of the wool that you use for this project, it just depends on how many rows of increase that you make. I'm using 8-ply wool with a 4mm crochet hook. First of all, we want to make our slip knot. So grabbing your short end, putting it over your long end and creating a loop. Folding the loop down over the long end. Grabbing your piece of yarn in the middle and pulling up. There are plenty of ways to do slip knots, so make it how you like. What we need to do is chain 5. And slip stitch into the first chain to make a ring. We now have a little ring that we're going to crochet into. What we want to do, we are going to chain up 2. We're going to be using half double crochets for this project. So wrapping your yarn, going into the loop, into the middle of the loop, pulling up a loop. We have 3 on our hook, pulling up a loop and pulling through all 3. That is how we make our half double crochet. I will do it once more for you. Wrapping your yarn, going into the loop, wrapping your yarn, pulling up a loop. We have 3 on our hook, wrapping our yarn, pulling through all 3. We want to put 6 of those into the center. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. What we want to do is now grabbing our stitch marker, placing it over the top of our work like that. We now want to do 2 half double crochets into our first stitch. If you can't see where your first stitch is, just count back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Working into that space there. Pulling up a loop and then pulling through. Want to work another half double crochet into that stitch. It's a little bit hard to see that first one. And now from every stitch around we want to work 2 into the same stitch. So 2 into the next. When we work 2 into the same stitch, this is classed as an increase. I find that this row is just a little bit hard to see the stitches, but as we continue on it does get a lot easier. Okay, so up to where a stitch marker is, so we should have 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Excellent. So grabbing our stitch marker, you want to put it up again next to our stitch. And now we are going to do 1 stitch in the next stitch. So 1 half double crochet in the next stitch, and then we're going to do 2 into the next stitch. one into the next, and two into the next one, one into the next, and two into the next one, one into the next, and as you can see we're repeating this all the way around, two into the next, one into the next, two into the next. And it's going to start to like fold over like that. You want to just push it over because we're working on the outside. Meaning like the outside is facing us, not working around there. So we're sort of kind of working on the inside of the beanie. So we want to flip it out. So what was that? That was an increase. So the next one is just one by itself, and an increase in the next one. Remembering that's two stitches in the one stitch. And then two into there. On to the next round, we want to move our stitch marker. Obviously it's better if your stitch marker is a different colour than what you're making because it's easier to see. So we want to do one into the next, one into the next stitch, and then two into the next one. We're increasing in that next one. So that's one into the next stitch, one into the next stitch, and increase, working two into the next stitch. That's one in the next, one in the next, increase in the next one. We're going to repeat this all the way around. So that's one in the next, two, and then an increase. That's one, two, and an increase. That's one, two, and an increase. That's one, two, and an increase. Moving up to our next row, moving our stitch marker up. It's one in the next, one in the next, and another one in the next. So that's three stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then we do our increase. Can you see a pattern forming here? Each time we go to a next row, we add one more stitch in between our increases. So we're up to 3, so that's 1, 2, 3, and an increase in the next stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, and an increase. 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 Now I think you get what we're up to now, so I'll just complete this part. And we always end on an increase on every row. So if you don't end on an increase, you know you've made a mistake somewhere. Okay, so grabbing our stitch marker, putting it up. Now we want to do 4 in between our increase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase. And you just want to repeat this all the way around until we get to our stitch marker. So now I've up to the end of my row and I've ended on the increase, pulling out our stitch there, moving it up, and now we're working 5 in between our increase. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and an increase. Now each row will be in this pattern. Each time we do another row, we go up 1 stitch in between our stitch increase. So this is 5 in between our stitch, and next row will be 6, next row will be 7, and so on. And you can make this from a baby size up to an adult size. Depending on how many increased rows, obviously will depend on how big your beanie is. So for an adult you might need about, for me using 8 ply and a 4mm hook, I will need about 10 rows of increase. For a baby I'm only going to use about 7. And to judge the size of your beanie, to know if it's going to fit, you need to get a head, like a real head, or something that you can have that's sort of the same size as a head. So this is going to be my baby head, and this is my baby beanie. So if this was the size, I need to first of all adjust the camera, and then if this is the crown of the baby's head, and these are the sides of your head, when you put it on, it needs to be as wide as the crown of your head. So it needs to be that wide. So I need to do probably 1 more row of increase to fit this baby, and then continue on with my sides. If it was a lot smaller, and just say the side of the beanie came to here, I still need to increase to come down until the side of the head starts to go straight. So like I said, if you've got a head to try it on, it's great. If not, there are websites online that give you size measurements for heads. I think it's called Bev's Cottage. I will put the link below. She has a fantastic site that has head measurements. And I do use it all the time because I don't have any kids to make kids beanies. So I use that as a guide. So continuing on with this row, we've just done our increase and we were up to 5 if I'm right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. So we need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then an increase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we just want to continue this until we get to our stitch marker. I'm up to the end of my row and I've finished on an increase and I'm moving my stitch marker. What we want to do is go into the next stitch and we are doing 6 in between each increase. And after this row I'm not going to show you how to keep increasing because I'm sure you've got it by now. And then you'll just need to increase as much as you need, and you might even already have stopped because you've used thicker wool. And then I will show you how to do the straight sides of the beanie. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and an increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and an increase. And this also will work if you use the double crochet as well, and the single crochet. The single crochet I find is a little bit too tight, and I love the effect that the half double crochet gives. So I will just finish off this row and then I will catch up to you where we start the straight sides of our beanie. I have decided that my hat is big enough in the increase round, and now we want to work on the sides. I have moved my stitch marker already, and then all we are going to do is put 1 half double crochet into every single stitch and just continue on until you get to your stitch marker. Move it up a row as normal and continue on to the next row, just placing 1 half double crochet in every stitch. And then we want to continue to do this until our beanie is long enough. This beanie is going to be for a newborn baby, and the recommended height, so from the brim up to the crown where we started, the recommended height is 14 centimeters. So I'm just going to continue on until my beanie is 14 centimeters from the top of my beanie until the brim. My hat is long enough, so my next stitch I'm going to do a single crochet and then slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. And then cutting off your yarn, pulling through, grabbing your needle, we just need to sew in our ends. Going to the inside of the hat, sewing back to the inside of our hat. You just want to weave our yarn in between our stitches. Normally I do it for about 2 inches just to be on the safe side, and that way if it does come out you do have some length on your yarn so you can actually sew it back in. Trimming off our ends. And there we have our beanie. Just move the camera so you can see. There we go. There's our beanie made. And you just need to sew in your end that's in here. And then we can start on the ears.